Welcome to what I consider a very special episode of Behind the Needle today. I think that all of the guests that I interview are special. If I can say that there is a very special guest here today, I will. So this is Tracy O'Malley. She is a dear friend of mine. She's going to blow your mind. I've learned that there's not a lot of, we'll call it business development training in aesthetics, laser, nursing, and medical school. And I think that that's a problem. So part of the way I use this podcast is to help people in areas that are in that realm by interviewing people who are not in the medical aesthetics world as providers. And so today you're here because you have a very special tool that you have mastered.
Mm-hmm.
You are the master.
I am.
Of this tool.
With this tool, for sure.
You are the master of this tool. And the tool that you use is really interesting. I first learned of it probably 8 years ago when I moved to Nashville. Nashville 8 years ago was full of millennials. Everybody was working on something cool in their own lane, but supportive of each other. Everybody asked me if I was a musician all the time. I'm like, no. Do I look like that? But that's cool. Thank you. And then I learned about this tool that you mastered and how it can help give me a little bit of understanding about the way I work and operate. And also how when I learn about other people's personalities, I guess, then how I can work with them very well. So the reason that I wanted to bring Tracy on here today is because she has mastered the Enneagram. You may have heard of the Enneagram before. In a sentence or two, Tracy, how would you describe like what it is?
Yeah, it's very non-traditional. You know, if you're somebody who's super analytical, you can GTS, Google that stuff.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to understand things like, okay, like I understand what this is, but what's in this for me? And my understanding and how I love to help people integrate it, it's like we have our home base, right?
Okay.
Whether it's our physical body or our home, but we do venture out into the world, right? Personality wise and spaciously, we do that. And what the Enneagram provides is this navigation system, your preferred roads that you like to take, where you go off-roading from time to time, or you might even fly over the cliff, or alternative routes that you can take that can enhance the trip outside of home base, right? So
Okay.
I use it like a compass, a navigation system, and a GPS.
Okay.
We're always coming back home, right? To ourselves,
Yep.
to our physical home. And sometimes we take different ways to get there, and some are really great and some are a little rocky from times to time.
So you could say that the Enneagram is a tool that helps you navigate through life according to the way you are and how you respond in certain situations, strengths and weaknesses, so that you can move through the different days and weeks and months and years of your life optimally.
Yeah, and it's not just personality, it's also like this soul blueprint that we have. I've carried 2 babies in my body, and they were very different in utero and very unique, and they had personalities before they were earthside with me. And it's ironic, and not really, that when they were presented to the world, like their personalities were very unique to themselves. And now understanding what I do about the Enneagram, it was very much how it was. But then we're dropped into life and experiences and situations and family systems and cultures and schools and all the things that kind of alter the expression of that soul blueprint.
Yeah.
And so my goal with the Enneagram is kind of bringing us back home.
Okay.
To who we were designed to be and designed as before life kind of kicks us in the teeth a little bit and kind of changes that expression.
Cool. Thank you. And so what happens, going back to this observation that I made about this industry, is that there's not a lot of like business training. There's not really any leadership training or sales. You know, a lot of people that end up becoming entrepreneurs had entrepreneurial parents or mentors that heavily influenced them and taught them the ropes. I did not. have that. And so I've always wondered kind of where my entrepreneurial spirit came from, but I had college experience and my degree was business management, which I chose after changing 7 times. And the reason I chose it is because I didn't know what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so it's like you have to learn so much about yourself and the way to navigate business with other people in order to be successful. You cannot just say, I have a laser in my hand or a needle in my hand or my brush or whatever device I'm using, right? There's so much to running a successful business because there are so many different types of people. And it's not that you have to necessarily change who you are and be different for all these other people, but you do have to understand how to provide service to all the different types of people. So why should we give a crap about the Enneagram? Like there are there's Myers-Briggs, there's a lot of other personality tests and leadership tests that people can take. And many of them, I assume, are great.
To some degree, yes.
To some degree. So why should I care so much about the Enneagram?
And I love anything that helps me understand the way that I operate. So I love all those things, and I love astrology and human design and DISC and all of it. Why the Enneagram, though? It's like the master's program of yourself, right? And it gets, a lot of those other things are more behavior driven, right? And it's, I mean, we know, like the diet industry, we know what we need to do, but do we always do it, right? If we're just kind of going off behaviors and we're not like pulling it up at the root, the same situation is going to keep coming up. But when we can see a behavior and understand what's at the root of that, we can start to kind of condition our soil a little bit more and take care of the ground that the foundation is laid in. And when we understand the come from, the behavior is a lot easier to change. And when you were talking about like all these different personalities, why I also love the Enneagram is it kind of gives us a breakdown of 9 core different motives and perceptions in which we view the world. And they're all really important. They're all really special, and they're all really unique. And so that also streamlined things for me. It's like, okay, if I understand that, and, you know, I'm raising 2 kids that are motivated not just differently from each other, but also differently from me. And no matter how well-intended I was, and no matter how much in integrity I was with my kids and in business, if I didn't understand what was at the root of their motive, you know, like no matter how much I tried, it couldn't land. Right. And that creates a disconnect. Right. And so when you're working with clients or your own team within your business, no matter how well intended and in integrity you are, if they can't receive and understand that information in a way of like, how does this affect me a little bit? You're going to have disconnect. And when there's disconnect, we have chaos and drama and turnover and things like that. So, and we don't have to change who we are. And that was my biggest aha when I was first understanding this, is like, thank goodness. I didn't have to change who I was, but I am responsible for the come from and the care and commitment to speak in a way that the person on the receiving end can understand and receive it the way that I intend.
When you first stumbled upon the Enneagram, did it kind of feel like a piece of you was found? Or was it a slow, like, oh, actually, I really do like this, and then you kind of landed into it? Because I feel like a lot of people either have or haven't heard, but if they have, it's safe to say, I think, that the Enneagram doesn't mean as much to many people like it means to you.
Right.
It does mean something to me, but I struggle with figuring out how I use it.
Yeah. And
so that's kind of what I want to talk about right now. It's like, how do I actually use this in order to help? And here's what I want people to think about, because there's 2 parts to this, right? You're either a provider listening to this that works for someone else, or you are a med spa owner and you are either a sole proprietor with no other providers, or you have a team. And so there's different scenarios here, right?
Totally.
So I suppose the question really is like, because you offer the test. I took your test and you printed out and laminated a very nice sheet for me, and I actually keep that on my desk. There's very few things on my desk, but I keep that there. And I look at that, and it actually makes me feel empowered.
Yes.
When I read the words that you wrote, because it feels true about who I am. And I feel like when I sit in the truth of who I am and know and think about what I'm capable of doing, if I think about this, it makes me feel like I can do, what's the word? Challenging things, the challenging things that I want to do. And maybe this response is because of my type.
Right.
Maybe a different type would say, it makes me feel peaceful, or it makes me feel jovial because I'm able to whatever. But it makes me feel empowered, like, okay, I can go and do this stuff that I'm thinking and that I want to do. So really, if someone takes your test, which we'll link how to take Tracy's test, and we'll have all of that. It's the best Enneagram test that there is. I've taken 3. How do I use it? Let's start with if I'm a provider working with customers.
Yeah.
So like, do I have to learn about all the other types? Do I only have to learn about mine and how I specifically work with certain people or all people? Like, what's the easiest way that I can leverage the Enneagram results from the test in order to grow my business?
Right. Well, to take you back, because you asked, like, when I stumbled upon it, did I feel seen? And full transparency, like, I find it ironic that here I am, the master of it today, because 13 years ago, when it was introduced to me by my therapist at not the shining moment of my life, with a lot of colorful language and passion, I told her what she could do with it. And I did not want anything to do with it. I was like, I don't need a label. I have zero interest in this. And she didn't miss a beat. And thankfully, she's wired like me, and she's from Texas, so she's tough as hell. And she's like, my dear, your best thinking has gotten you here. And this might actually help you get out of the box that not only the world and yourself have put you in, but this might open up all the gifts that you actually do have, that you sabotage, that you hold back from. And I was like, well, touche, Nancy, you've got a point. And
thanks, Nancy, though, because Nancy, now we're able to do this episode today and help other people.
Like, seriously. And when I was first reading, and I was mistyped as well, which, all those other online tests, and we'll get to that at some point, but they're inaccurate about 65 to 70% of the time. That's why I love
65 to 70% of the time.
From those online assessments, even some of the paid ones.
Wow.
And if you're using this like an atlas or a navigation system, you got to have the right information. Otherwise, you're going to be going in the wrong direction, right? So I originally was mistyped as a 3, which, of course, my first, I was like, heck yeah, I'm the achiever. And Nancy's looking at me and she's like, I think that's wrong. Like, behaviorally, you can look very achiever-like. And if you looked on paper and looked at my receipts, it could look very 3-like, but motivationally, this is what the Enneagram is all about, is the motive behind the behaviors. And there's a big difference between how you're motivated as a 3 and how I'm motivated as an 8, but we can do some of the same actions and it can look very similar and have even similar energy, but the why behind it is completely different. And so when we discovered that I was actually the 8, I wasn't as excited about it. Sometimes we can feel peace and empowered and all the things, but it's just like when we look in the mirror, sometimes we don't always look at the parts that we love about ourselves. And sometimes when you have this information, especially when it's accurate, it's like, ooh, it's like we can see the superpowers, and the same things that my superpowers are, the things that make me amazing in all the ways that I am. When it's coming from the right place, I'm untouchable with it. But if I'm coming from a different place, it's the kryptonite in my life and can take out and wipe out anything that I care about.
Do you think you wanted to be a 3?
Yes.
Is that why you were mistyped?
Probably. And that's why a lot of these assessments are wrong. They don't have all these loopholes to kind of, combat somebody like me. And I know a lot of people listening are very high achieving type A, probably personalities too.
Why did you want to be a 3? You told me before we started rolling too that you
Yeah.
envy me sometimes because I am a 3. Why?
Because you can put the blinders on, and as long as you see the goal line, you can ignore some of the soul line that can interfere
Okay.
with that. And me as an 8, like, and that doesn't make 3s soulless. It's just you're very laser focused on the goal line. It's like, see it, hit it. And a lot of times there are things that come in the way. I can see a goal and hit a goal, but it's for different reasons. Like 3s are like to win, to achieve, to be the very best. And I'm not doing things to be the best. I'm doing things to be strong. And sometimes winning isn't.
Which could be a better motivation.
Depends on the scenario.
It could be.
Right. And there are times I am so thankful I'm not a 3 because I know the challenges and the kryptonite that comes with that. And also there are times that I want to get things done that I know make total smart sense. And my little passion inside of me is like, that's not how strong girls do it. But if you want to, go ahead and blow up your life and do things like that. So
before I took your test, I was a 2.
I could see that.
And then one time I took it and I was an 8.
Yeah, not even remotely.
And then I took it again as a 2.
Yeah.
And then I took yours and I discovered I was actually a 3, which is an achiever.
Mm-hmm.
I think, and the reason that I'm talking about this is because if you have gotten this test before, I think that you may have been mistyped. Mm-hmm. But if 65 to 70% of the tests out there mistype.
Yeah.
But if you haven't, it's interesting because there are so many things you can learn about yourself. And what's interesting is I think I was mistyped as a 2 for years, several years.
I could see that.
Because I was scared of being the person in the forefront. Mm-hmm. And a 3 that's scared helps other people to be great.
Yep.
So I still do help other people. But I have always been called people's greatest hype man, their cheerleader.
The greatest. And you notice the adjective there?
Right.
Which, hello, 3.
I'm like, I am the greatest.
Yes.
I'm the greatest 2 that there ever was, but I wasn't actually. So everybody needs this, in my opinion. Someone who's not the master saying this. Although I could be the master if I wanted. No, I'm just joking.
Totally could. Totally could. All you 3s don't have to learn the Enneagram.
I could be the master of this.
I'll be the most powerful, though.
Yes. You will be the most powerful. Everybody needs this, though, because when you discover and you really know who you truly are, that's where your power is.
And that's sustainable.
And it's sustainable.
Yeah.
And when you sit in your power that is sustained and sustainable, that's when you can operate in a healthy way and grow your business.
Yes.
It's fantastic.
It is. And it's also very confronting because there's parts of our truth and our authentic selves that, you have to step out on that tightrope. And no matter, I've been walking tightropes for almost 53 years at this point, and it doesn't matter each level it goes up. Those first few steps are still really wobbly sometimes, and it's scary. And the minute we get momentum in being ourselves and just owning it, like, it gets easier.
Yes.
But we got to put the reps in, and sometimes it's really hard.
It is, because as a misdiagnosed or mistyped 2 who turned into a 3 and really had a couple of people, especially last year, you were one of those, who really encouraged me to be who I am. Last year was a very challenging year for me. For the growth, for all of the things that I had to put one foot in front of the other in order to do. But my business is bigger than it's ever been. It's tripled compared to what it was last year at this time. My motivation to grow and to not just grow and get more clients, but to provide the best service that anyone has ever experienced. And you're laughing inside because this is a 3, but truly, I feel like I combine the 2 into my 3-ness. And I want med spas to have a solution that actually works for getting new customers.
Well, like, even you being very specific in who you serve and what you do. Like threes won't do things. They typically won't do things unless they're the very best at it. So like, I love how threes also streamline a niche, and because they're going to be masterful and be the best at this thing.
Yeah.
And where your two comes into play, there's also something within my assessment that this is kind of where the nature and nurture collide within the Enneagram. Like, yes, this is how you're naturally wired, and you were dropped into this life, and one of three instincts dominates for all of us. There's self-preservation instincts, there's the one-on-one instincts, which is what I am, and then there's the social instinct, which is what you are. And that doesn't mean extroverted necessarily. It's like the self-preservation, when things happen good or not so good, they go into how does this affect me and my safety, security, and comfort. The one-on-one, like I am, goes to how does this affect us and the interpersonal experience and the intensity of an experience. And then the social instinct, like you and my son, who I've said you guys remind me of each other, you guys go to how does this affect the we, the collective, and our place in humanity. And so a social three can look very two like.
Yeah.
A lot of, because you're always thinking about the collective and the we. And so, and also you have, as a three, we have these things called wings that are basically like the supporting cast.
Right.
And the three happens to have the two as one of your wings. So
Yep.
You use it a lot.
Yeah.
You use it a lot, and that's a beautiful thing.
Definitely. So how do med spa providers use this to help their patients? Yeah. Can it help them have a better experience? Can it help them build more trust? Can it help the providers be able to give better consultations? Like
100%.
You've worked with med spas too, and you do work with med spas. People can hire you to come in and work with the team, and we'll also link to your Instagram so that people can reach out or whatever. Yeah. We'll talk about that later, but how?
Yeah. Well, leadership always starts at the top. And, one of the things that when I'm talking to somebody who's like, I need help with my team, or I need help with client retention or client satisfaction, whatever, it's like, well, it always starts with you, right? And if you just want me to come in and fix them, like, it's not going to work. It's just like parenting, they're going to do what we do, not what we say to do. So I always say, like, take full ownership and understand yourself. And I can do that, like, obviously pretty fast tracked and get there really, really quickly with somebody. But you also have to understand how others might receive you.
You have to understand how others might receive you, especially if you're a boss, your employees and your team members. But also, if you're clients. A provider, your clients. Okay, so talk to me 100%. About that.
So, like, in the past, before I really understood this, like, I could talk to people that were very intense and no BS and type A and a lot of masculine energy, right? I used to be in the car industry, which was male dominated. And so it worked really, really well there.
Yeah.
Right? But then switching completely industries 13 years ago to almost 90% women, I was like, even though there's a lot of type A women out there, I was missing the boat on the more sensitive people, the empaths, the analytical people. And not only does that make people not feel seen, heard, understood, or valued for who they are, you're also leaving a hell of a lot of money on the table when you can't speak to the collective.
So what did you do?
Well, the first aha I had was understanding that, holy crap, like, I speak this language and I have two children that speak very different languages. And that was where it doesn't matter how well-intended I am. I have to understand what is their core motive and what is their core fear. And it isn't as hard as 9 different types, because we can split it into 3 different categories.
Okay.
Because there's 3 centers of intelligence that we use. We all use all 3 of them, but wherever your home base is, your core Enneagram type, which doesn't change, is where you go first.
Okay.
So you as a 3 go to the feeling center first.
Okay.
And even though a lot of 3s look as though maybe they don't feel a lot because they're so busy, like, making things happen, they run everything through, how do I feel about this?
Everything.
And
even what you're telling me right now, I feel everything in here, and I'm like processing it through.
That's why we can't go off behaviors. Like, especially when I'm with a 3, they look like they don't, like, nothing rattles them, and I know differently. And so I'm real sensitive to that, and I speak to it. But the feeling center types, the 2s, 3s, and 4s all go to like, how do I feel about this and what has happened? So you're always kind of looking to the past for evidence. Like, how did this feel last time? How did this go last time?
Yeah.
And you move accordingly depending on which type you are in that center. Now we have the thinking center of intelligence. So the 5, 6s, and 7s go there first, right? And that's their dominating center of intelligence. We do use the other ones. But the 5, 6s, and 7s go to, what do I think about this and what could happen?
Mm-hmm.
So the 2s, 3s, and 4s are natural relationship connectors, things like that. Community, like you're natural at that because feeling. The 5, 6s, and 7s, what do I think about this and what could happen? That's why they're great strategists, troubleshooters, visionaries, naturally.
Yeah.
Any type can do anything, but that's where they go first and they're forward thinking. And there's downsides, as you know, to feeling everything and going to the past. Like sometimes you might miss a miracle in front of you.
Yep.
And the thinking center or thinking so far ahead, they might also like miss a miracle right in front of them or not like look at how did this go last time, right? Yep. And then the center I fall into is the gut or instinctual center. And I go to what is happening right now and what needs to be done about it. It's why I'm great in triage. I'm great in a crisis. Like I'm definitely the person they call when all hell's breaking loose. Because it's like, I don't get rattled by that, but I don't always think ahead of like the consequences of me barreling into a burning building.
It's more of like, how do I solve the immediate problem as fast as possible, as well as I can.
As powerful as possible, as an 8,
As powerful.
And each type has like the umbrella motive in each center of intelligence. Like I want you to think of it like a blanket kind of motive. And this is how you can kind of start, without having me test everyone. And this is how I got so masterful at it. Because the first 5 years, I told no one that I was using this tool. And I was doing it without assessments. Right. And growing up the way that I grew up, I kind of had to do this. And this just gave me framework and a language. But I started kind of understanding, okay, let me figure out which center of intelligence dominates for them. And when you speak to it and it lands, you start to hear things like, gosh, I just met you. I feel like you've known me my whole life.
And which one would that be? That's a feeling. So they're a 2, 3,
no,
or 4?
Any of them.
Oh, okay.
Like anytime I feel
you're
like
saying that when they say that to you, you know that you hit their center of intelligence.
I'm landing.
Got it.
And then I can take it to a deeper level. So like in the feeling center, right? The 2s, 3s, and 4s, you're all motivated by some form of significance.
Okay.
But what that means to a 2, to a 3, and a 4, completely different, right? Same thing in the thinking center of intelligence. They're all motivated by a form of certainty. What that means to a 5 and a 6 and a 7, completely different. Same thing in the instinctual center, the 8s, 9s, and 1s, we're all motivated by a form of independence, autonomy, and control. What that means to an 8 is different than a 9 to a 1. But you can start to understand it, especially the more intentional and curious you get about the person in front of you from the point of view of what's in it for them. Okay. I would have used this as a manipulative tool many, many years ago if I had it then. It's like, if I can get people to do what I want, I need to understand this, especially as a provider or a team leader. Like you really want to be curious and care and have genuine concern for how they're motivated and how they fear so that you can empower them, serve them better so they can feel seen, heard, understood, and value. And then you earn credibility and trust.
You need to repeat that again. That was really, really important. You need to understand how people feel. What did you say? And fear, and how they fear?
What they're motivated by and how they fear.
What they're motivated by and how they fear. So this is your patients.
Yep.
And your team members.
100%.
Okay.
How I really put this together is, so I'm an 8, my son's a 2. 2s are notoriously beautifully empathetic, sensitive, right? And when he would be upset about something, I would say things like, who cares what people think? Well, that's everything to a 2. Now,
he's like, I do.
And can you imagine if I said that to somebody, especially the person I care about the most in this world, how misunderstood he must have felt or how unseen or unvalued and then he starts to chip away at his own confidence like there's something wrong with that, but that's actually his superpower. Now, he doesn't have to give it as much Credibility and leverage is maybe a toucan, right? There's these ends of the pendulum.
Yep.
But him caring about what people think is what makes him freaking amazing, and it's a superpower. And me now understanding that and knowing that there's none of the Enneagram types that are better than the other. They all are very unique and they're superpowers, and they're
Yep.
all really important. So the more that we respect and care about the gifts and the perceptions that they see the world, the better we're going to be as a leader, as a parent, as a provider.
Mm-hmm.
And the minute I stopped saying that, and it's like, I understand this must feel really painful for you.
Yeah.
And that's not going to change, or like you're going to care deeply, and you don't have to lose your sense of generosity and kindness. And also, let's armor you up with some boundaries and the ability to say no a little bit more often, and check why you need to say yes all the time. A totally different come from than saying, who gives a shit what they think?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
and
I
same
do.
thing with my daughter, who's in the thinking center. So like, this is why I really focused on the centers, because I'm in the instinctual, she's in the thinking, and he's in the feeling. So I got really good at understanding kind of the centers. So she's in the certainty center, the thinking center. And I used to be like, can you just focus here right now? And her brain is always going forward, 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 forward. And that all the time. And yes, she did need some structure. But because I was disrespecting her visionary spirit and her need for certainty that there are always options and choices, and I was putting her in a box, like if I continued to do that, I absolutely would have lost a relationship with her at some point. And so like, I have to be a little wordsmithy with her. I can be intense with her. I can't be as intense with him, but I can speak the truth to him, but I can be intense with her, but I have to be a wordsmith, because if my language at all feels like I'm boxing her in.
Yeah. You're taking away her autonomy and her independence.
And her freedom and choices.
See ya.
Yeah. So when you're talking to people, it's like you look for these cues, and asking somebody what they're motivated by is not how you do it. There's usually like 6 degrees to the truth of the root.
Okay.
Right? Because I could say, I like to be the best. Why? Well, I like to let everybody know I'm in charge. Why? You know, I don't care about the trophy. I care about the power and the strength that comes with a certain trophy.
Yeah.
And, you know, early on in my life, you know, it was very hard to lead me, especially if I didn't trust who is in charge to be able to take the reins and be strong and powerful like me. And that's been fascinating. When I trust whoever's in charge, I'm like, cool. I will not try to control anything. That's really important to know when you're, you know, talking to somebody. I mean, if you're sticking needles in somebody's face and doing these really big things to somebody.
This is a really good point.
Yeah.
Since there are 9 types and everyone only has one primary type, can everyone, no matter their type, hopefully this is a yes or no question, but can everyone, no matter their type, look at another person and figure out, using these intelligence centers, how they can help that person so that they get the opportunity to treat them and give them the optimal results that they're looking for?
Yeah, you can definitely make a lot of headway than trying to kind of throw it up at the wall and hope it sticks, right? Like understanding the center. Like if I know I have somebody that's motivated by independence, autonomy, and control, I need to kind of, you can kind of tell. You can tell when somebody walks into the office and needs to be in charge a little bit, or like some of the types find control in just being like wishy-washy and like, I don't care, whatever you want. Like, it's like, okay, like there's something.
Do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want. I just want harmony over here. That's a form of control.
Interesting.
You know?
Because they're still doing what you told them to do, even though that's interesting.
Or, you know, sometimes a form of control is not caring about anything, so it can't control them.
Yeah, that's true.
You know what I mean?
I do.
If you have somebody that's asking a lot of questions and need to know details, like there's a difference between having certainty and having control, right? So you got to be curious. And I know, like when you are on, you know, these consults and time blocks that you have with clients and stuff, so you have to get pretty skillful. I mean, I can break somebody down within 2 minutes, but I've practiced a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And I know what I'm looking for.
This is awesome.
I know.
Because if they know these things and they start practicing the tools, their consultations will go faster. They will be able to sell bigger packages, but most importantly, they'll be able to deliver better results because the patients are letting them do it.
1,000,000%. Like when you know, a lot of times in leadership, I don't care what type you are. I mean, we all want to feel liked in some way, right?
Yeah.
And appreciated.
Yeah.
But in leadership, whether it's as the provider or, you know, the team leader, trust and credibility is way more important than being liked.
Okay.
It really is. Now, I'm not always the most liked person, but I am one of the most trusted people, even by people who don't necessarily think I'm their cup of tea.
And is that what an 8 wants? Or is that
That's just
naturally
strong leadership
happening because of your ability to explain things to people and make them feel
like I got this,
Yeah.
and I got you.
Yeah.
Now, I might be a little intense for you sometimes, or, you know, and I've gotten way better that I am pretty well liked for the most part, unless somebody is like feeling like, oh, she sees me too deeply.
I'm not ready to be seen that
Yeah,
deep.
and I get that, because if I had a me in my life 15 years ago, I would have been like, keep her away from me. Like, I get it. Like,
Yeah.
and I'm here for that. But when you have trust and credibility from a client, from, you know, a team member, we can effectively and efficiently have strong culture, great communication, and streamlined services that go off without a hitch for the most part. Or when conflict comes up, we can move through it a lot faster, not by bypassing it or slapping a Band-Aid on it, but by moving through it.
It's so much easier probably to do this when people have worked as a team with you in the team aspect, because if I went to a conference one time and it was fantastic. It was Funnel Hacking Live when it was in Nashville in like 2018 or 19. And I loved it. And I was fired up about growing my business. And Ashley didn't come, and I came home because it was like a 3-day thing. I would come home and I would be just so fired up and telling her everything about it. And
fire hosing her.
And she was like, cool. What do you want to have for dinner?
Yeah.
So I was like, great question. And it wasn't that she didn't care. It's just that the energy of Funnel Hacking Live, of this conference and all this, here's how you do this, you can do it, this motivation, it lived there. And it stayed there with all the people. And I took a tiny, teeny part of it home with me. But that could have been a different result if I had known how to internalize it and then use, or if I knew the types better, how I could present the information and the excitement that I had so that she would care, which would have made me feel better, which also could have led to a very powerful conversation about how it could have helped her, which also would have just led to better conversation in general. So how do you bridge the gap, I guess, is the question now, because people will be listening to this and they'll be super excited, and some of them will want to work with you, and they should, and it's going to help all of their business. But is it possible for them to do enough on their own, or do they need to work with you? Do you know what I'm saying?
Sure. You know, it's just like anything. Like, I'm somebody who likes the fast pass. I like a guide. I learn things a lot faster when I'm in the trench with somebody who's better at it than me.
And that's not bad, but there's different tracks.
Totally different tracks. I mean, if you want this to be like a Swiss Army knife with precision that's like laser focused, you need a guide. Like, learning it. I mean, it's taken me 13 years of doing and integrating this. And I've worked with thousands of people of all different walks of life, of all different kinds of businesses, to become masterful at it. Now, having knowledge about it is great and absolutely is way better than if you don't, but information doesn't equal transformation.
Information does not equal transformation.
It's integration of the information.
Integration of the information equals transformation.
So let me go back to your story about, you know, coming home all fired up, right? And like you said, you're like, great. Like, I'm sure that felt hurtful. It felt like she didn't care, maybe. And I know her, and I know that's not the truth.
No, yeah, absolutely.
Right?
She cared.
Think about this. Like, I'm thinking about this med spa that I worked with, a mutual client of ours. And there was a lot of interpersonal like drama going on. I mean, a beautiful business, amazing business. And like some of this interpersonal drama was creating conflict and a breakdown in some of the things going on in the business. And I came in, and the beautiful thing about, especially when we do like group work with this, is we start to see, like, I could see some of the people that maybe were a little salty with each other. All of a sudden, compassion set in. That some of the things that we do interpersonally or receive interpersonally from somebody else feels really freaking personal sometimes. And it's usually not. And when we are learning about the Enneagram, you know, somebody like my daughter who comes in all excited about all these amazing different things she wants to do. And my strategy brain is going, oh my God, like, how's she going to do that? But what are you going to do first? Like, I'm like peeing in her Cheerios, you know? And she's like, well, you're not excited about my dreams, you know? And think about that in the workspace. If you're disregarding other people or taking it personal, which I'm not saying it doesn't feel personal sometimes, because it does. But when we understand that it isn't as personal as we make it sometimes, we can bridge this gap in creating a culture and open communication and empowering others. You know, and also with the comparison game, especially in this industry, you know, like, oh, she has a med spa that does this and she has a med spa that does this. Like,
oh, and it's very bad with social media too,
I
because you
know.
can make it seem like you're busy, and there's folks who will post their schedule, and you truly don't know if that's what their schedule is.
But you internalize that, like you
Yep.
suck at life.
They're better than me.
Right.
Yep.
I mean, I'm human and I teach this stuff and I'm masterful at it. And I, you know, have to catch myself too for different reasons.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, of course they're doing it like that way. They're different than me. It's not going to look the same, and that's not better than me. And I'm not better than her, you know? And when we can really, really understand this and embody this understanding, we have more permission to fully be ourselves in our full truest expression, which is beautiful. Like anything at its pure form is beautiful.
Yeah.
Anything.
Yeah. What is something that people can do as a first step to be ready to take your test?
Yeah, you have to be like, if you're raising your hand and saying, I want to be the best version of myself, then we have to take the responsibility with that too. And sometimes being the best version of ourselves means having to look in a mirror and some of these patterns that we've used to keep us safe, certain, or significant. And we have to be willing to kind of put the walls down a little bit and know, and also meet ourselves with kindness, care, and compassion. Because a lot of times people are like, yeah, I want to do this. And then they see it and they're like, ooh, and they pull out, you know, the shame, the guilt, the judgment, the criticism on themselves. Like, please only do this if you are willing to be compassionate with yourself. Because I don't want to give you this atlas that gives you permission to beat the crap out of yourself anymore.
Wow.
Because that's not going to serve anyone.
That's not the answer I thought you were going to say, but it's beautiful. Please only take this if you're ready to be compassionate with yourself.
Please.
That's amazing.
It's the truth.
It is. It is the truth, because this is a window inside of who you are, and it is so necessary for everyone to be very compassionate with themselves.
Have to.
When do we stop, right? Like, this is a rhetorical question, but
Yeah.
when do we stop? Like, I have an almost 3-year-old who, quite frankly, will do things that she knows that I don't want her to, and shows, I didn't know it was possible to show zero remorse. There is no remorse sometimes. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
I would love to monitor her. I could probably figure out where she falls in this.
I'm talking
I have an
to
idea.
you.
I have an idea.
I think that she's I think she's a thinker.
Yeah.
I do. I don't know which one exactly, but I think she's a what was it, 5, 6, or a 7? Because she loves to move things and see what happens. And she also wants to know what are we doing today?
Certainty.
And she'll want to know if she can have a popsicle. And it's very interesting. Yeah. Who's coming over today? So what I was saying was,
When did it
when
happen?
did we stop being compassionate to ourselves, right? Like, we need to be.
Well, I know when it happened for me, it was not much older than Annie Ray. Like I was 4. The
Yeah.
first time I remembered very clearly self-abandoning to meet the needs of the household, right? And, we've talked about being legendary before and like the little legends inside of us. And I know like Annie Ray could come up to you and share something on her heart and she would be met with compassion, right? A lot of us didn't. We were told, I'll give you something to cry about, or you shouldn't care about that, or you shouldn't feel that way.
Go
or
pick out a book that I can use to spank you.
Or you're better seen than heard, or you insert. That's going to chip away at compassion because it's like, there's something wrong with me. Why won't my dad stop drinking? Am I not worthy enough? All those things start to add up and chip away at our willingness to have compassion for ourselves if this is happening in our life, right? And so this is why the tool of the Enneagram is not just great for business and all the things we're talking about, but it helps us reconnect with that little legend who maybe allowed compassion to go away.
I think that's the key.
It is. That's why I love this. It brings us back home.
I think I finally understand why it matters.
It does.
Because at first I was going to be like, I thought my first question was going to be, why should I care?
Yeah.
But it was like the second or third. It brings you home. You said it before, but now I understand it.
It brings us back home before life got a hold of us.
Before life kicked us in the teeth. You already said it.
I said it.
You're like a murder mystery podcast that I have.
I go to bed watching that stuff. So
oh gosh,
I'm like a Dateline episode. That's it.
It's interesting that you said that when you were 4. I remember when I was 5, I was in kindergarten half day, and the teacher told me to go grab a book or grab something off of the shelf, and I didn't know which shelf, where it was, and I got very embarrassed. And I don't know what happened, but that's like one of the earliest memories I have of being embarrassed. And what's interesting too is I still love very simple, straightforward directions and instructions and explanations.
So you know how to hit the goal.
Exactly. So I feel like I've always been a 3.
You always have.
But I didn't know, and not knowing
is like going blind with like I used to read the Atlas as a little girl, which I find it ironic, but not really.
I've never heard anyone say that before.
I know. I was made fun of for it. Like,
interesting.
And this is before, I'm born in 1972. So like, this is before the internet, Google Maps, and like you actually had to have a map or an atlas.
Yeah.
And I used to lay on the floor and like flip through the white or the yellow covered spiral bound atlas. And like, I would be reading Iowa and I was always fascinated. I wanted to understand, how do we get from here to there? And, the Enneagram is just one big mapping system, right? We have a home. Mine was home in Chicago, Illinois, but I wanted to know, how do we get to Iowa if we want to go there? How do we go to be the best version of ourselves?
Because you felt like if you knew
I
that
could
you
get
had
there.
The power.
I just need to know the roads to take.
Interesting.
And
you didn't even need or want to go there specifically.
No, I just wanted to know, if I want to go there, how do I get there? And that's how the Enneagram can work for you. If you know you want to be the best version of yourself, you need to know the way to go for you, not for me, but for you. And everybody's map and atlas within the framework of the Enneagram is a little different. It's why, like, especially when you're leading a team or leading a full book of business, like, you need to know where their maps go.
Yeah.
A little bit. You don't have to be as intricate as I am to make a lot of headway, but at least giving a damn about their mapping system will create so much magic within your business.
And the way that you do, this is what you said. It's by having compassion. That's the key word.
You must. Like, think about it. If you use shame or judgment or criticism or guilt, you will stay stuck. Nothing ever grows from that place. Nothing. It's just like your spring weed killer on top of it. It's just going to come back stronger.
Yeah.
Right? It's not until you get to the root of it which is the heart of compassion and empathy and grace and love and kindness and service and honor.
Yeah.
We can only really transform when we meet ourselves with that. And I hate to break it to you, but if you think you're compassionate to other people, but you're not to yourself, you're probably not actually compassionate for other people, because you can't give what you don't have. You really can't. I could manufacture what compassion looked like. I could, but it wasn't until I actually embodied that for myself that I actually have it for others.
When you have compassion for yourself, you're able to have compassion for other people.
1,000,000%, because when people do me dirty, because they're humans, or somebody does something that is like, triggering, because I have practiced consistently compassion for myself, even though this feels personal, whether it's a client, an old friend, my partner, one of my children, the minute that hits me, because I have practiced compassion for myself, I'm like, okay, what's really going on here? I know this feels really personal and it's coming at me hot, but I don't have to let that kind of murky the waters of what's really happening.
How do you stay compassionate for others, but not get taken advantage of?
Well, I I have no problem being direct. I am very much somebody that has learned. I didn't the first 40 years of my life. The body never lies,
Mm-hmm.
and neither does energy. And we have to trust that, right? And that's what I love about the Enneagram too, is because we've been given this beautiful vessel and an intuition, right? I think both are beautiful divine gifts we've been given.
Okay.
And then we have the soul blueprint of our personality, right? And before I go into my instincts and my feeling and my thinking, I'm like, okay, what's my body telling me about a situation right now? Honestly.
Okay.
Right. And so I'm already kind of getting cues before anything comes out of anybody's mouth. And
Is this because of your Enneagram, or can anyone do what you're talking
anybody
about?
can do. It's also one of my gifts. And
Okay.
also growing up in an alcoholic home, I kind of had to read situations.
You had to learn.
Yeah, so it's kind of all of it. So I am probably better at it than most. But I think so much of us are kind of neck down dead sometimes, that we're not listening to our bodies. We're not listening to signs that, and I was guilty of that for 40 plus years of my life. My body was screaming at me, trying to tell me about certain things. And I was like, I got this. I'm stronger. What is happening now? What do I need to do about it? Right. So the cool thing about it is understanding your center of intelligence, but also like using it in tandem with your body. And you can start to pick up. I'm sure if you're listening right now, there have been situations that you ignored, you felt it, the energy was off, and you kind of bypassed it with like the biggest fear of your Enneagram type, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it blew up,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now, because I understand myself, my body, like even if somebody is in front of me saying all the right things, I'm like, okay. And I have compassion for that, but I'm not going to let you take advantage of me. And so I'm direct.
Okay.
With kindness sometimes. Like, and it depends. I mean, if I have another 8 in front of me, it's going to get spicy. Right. But if I have like a 2 in front of me, like with my son, I had to do this the other day. I'll give you a perfect example of that.
Okay.
My son the other day, biggest empath of all. I'm usually his sounding board for all the good and all the not so good. And he's, going through something right now. And he called me on a Sunday night after I've been traveling for a full week. And he's like, Mom, can you come over right now? I'm like, no. And he goes, is there a reason why not?
Is there a reason why not?
I said, because no is a complete sentence. And I will meet up with you tomorrow happily. I'm exhausted. I've been fighting a head cold. And he was getting pissy at me. And he's like, well, you never come over. And I said, babe, just stop. This is not a fight you want to pick with me. We will talk about this tomorrow. I love you. Now, rewind 13 years ago when he would get like this, that was my defining moment of why I knew I needed some of these tools in my toolbox, because when he was 14 and pulled that crap on me, I put him up against the wall and I was not going to back down. Right. And so even though he's coming in hot at me, I can still meet him with love and kindness, but be very direct. And he didn't push it. And he comes over the next morning, and the very first thing he does is comes up to me, puts his arms around me, and apologizes and thanked me because I met him with compassion.
Yeah.
But I also was like, no bullshit. And it helped grow him. Because if I had engaged in the fight, in the pissing contest, it's going to turn into something that it's not even about. Right?
Man, this is so helpful.
Think about that with clients. Think about that with your team. Think about that
Yes.
this with your partner.
Yes.
That felt really freaking personal when he was coming in hot at me. And I could have gone to, you're so ungrateful. You're like all the things that I was thinking for a moment. It's like pause, compassion for myself. Like I am a great mom, compassion for him. I know he's going through it, and strong, healthy boundaries because I'm not going to also enable that. But I love him. And I feel that this feels really deep right now for him. That's using the Atlas all in real time.
Did you surprise him when you didn't back down, but didn't get in his face and you just stood?
Not anymore. Not
You
anymore.
Sure? Because I ask because, and maybe not.
Not anymore.
But that is a very different approach that only emotionally intelligent, emotionally super intelligent people can do on the fly. That is a very unusual strength and attribute that you have. It is.
Well, it's somebody that practices daily on
Yeah.
this, like, hourly, quite honestly. And he wasn't surprised by it.
Yeah. Used to be.
Oh.
Not anymore. It's like,
oh,
what?
He would be walking on eggshells like, oh, shit. Like,
when is she going to?
Or I don't think he was, you know what I think he might have been surprised by? And this surprises myself too, quite honestly, like how beautiful I have become in this kind of space. I don't think he was surprised that I held strong with love and compassion. I think what surprised him is when he walked in the door the next day, I'm sure he maybe wasn't sure how my energy would be. And there was no grudge held.
Yeah.
There was nothing but love. Come in. How are you? Did you sleep great? I love you so much. I'm happy to see you. And it was genuine. It wasn't BS. I think that probably surprises him more than me putting a boundary up.
Which is still part of the super emotional
100%.
intelligence. So
Yep.
We don't really know 99.9999999 and like 1,000 9s% of what happened to people.
Correct.
Because you and I have been face to face, 4 times?
Maybe.
We've connected over Zoom and we've had calls and all this stuff. But I don't see what happens to you. I know you told me that you had an appointment before this, and I have no idea where you're going after. I have no idea what happened yesterday. So this is where compassion is so important. And understanding that we don't know why people act the way that they do in the moments.
Correct.
Because we don't know what just happened.
No.
But the Enneagram and these centers of intelligence and your type enable you to have the compassion needed in order to have a boundary, still be kind, not give in and give up. And just like with you and your son, you guys had a way better connection the next day.
13 years ago, he moved out for a month because of an interaction, and I could have lost him, And I want to say this very clearly, that we can have compassion for other people, especially when we see behavior that might look a little irrational. We don't give anybody a free pass for crappy behavior, and we don't co-sign or enable some of this.
Right.
And we can still meet people with compassion. Like, I wasn't co-signing any of his BS that he was throwing at me. And also, I still met him with kindness and love. And I can do this with strangers too. You can do this with clients. You can do this with your team. it still feels personal sometimes.
Yeah. We've talked a lot about with your patients.
Mm-hmm.
There are people that listen to this that have team members
Yeah.
that they employ. And that is a big cluster of you know what, because
I know
that dealing with multiple people, sometimes multiple locations, sometimes you have corporations that you report to, but you also have team members that report to you. Let's speak directly to those people who are in charge of others,
Yeah.
like in making sure that
and you have a lot of money on the line
you have
and
a
a lot
lot
of
of money on
risk
the
and
line.
you know, like your name's on everything.
Yeah, your name's on everything. So let's speak to them next.
Yeah.
For a minute here. I want you to say whatever you think you should.
Yeah.
And I have seen, though, that a lot of people struggle. This goes back to the beginning of what we said. A lot of people struggle in this industry with, how do I lead my team? So is it because they don't know their types or how they're motivated? Or is it because they haven't had the learning experiences of being a leader? Like, what's something crucial to the foundation of being a good leader that someone can hear and start implementing now?
Well, it's really important to understand that you could have a team full of people that are motivated completely different than you. And if you're dangling carrots for them to do what you want them to do, and it's not the carrot they like or that really lights them up, it doesn't matter what you throw at it. If they're motivated differently than you, you're going to have to kind of find a workaround.
Okay.
Also, I see this a lot too. If they don't feel like you see, hear, understand who they are, they're going to assume that there's probably not a lot of room for growth here. And most people will leave if they don't feel like they can grow, and not just financially, right? But emotionally, in their craft, if you're not mentoring them.
So I didn't even hear you just say get a promotion.
No.
You just said emotionally in their craft, mentorship.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
More people will leave for lacking that. I'm working with this company in the health and wellness space as well, who strong leadership team, really crappy senior director level, and a team full of thoroughbreds, amazing people, hungry to learn and to be mentored. And because the senior director, their direct line is phoning it in for whatever reason, I'm like, to the senior levels, I'm like, you're going to lose a bunch of thoroughbreds that seriously are so incredible, because they're being thrown to the wolves trying to figure things out on their own. They're being worked to death trying to figure it out, plus do their tasks, that they're going to leave.
Yeah.
They want to learn from you. And especially as a leader, you have more experience most likely than the people that are in your team.
And some people do love to be thrown to the wolves.
I know, I do.
But
there's a difference between throwing them to the wolves and micromanaging and setting them up to fail.
Right.
Like,
they need to be set up to succeed.
Right. And that will, knowing kind of how they operate, you will be able to set them up to succeed in whatever way suits them best.
But you said there's 6 degrees to this. You can't just say what motivates you.
No. You have to look for cues. You have to be curious. You have to care. You have to give a shit. Right. And a lot of times, like, we go into curiosity because we have an agenda, where it's like, I want to get them to do this.
Okay.
And people can feel that. Like, if you're trying to control me, even with beautiful, polished up language, you're going to get something completely different from me.
Yeah.
Right. I will almost not do it because you're trying to control me and you're trying to blanket it with fluff.
Yeah.
Right. Not everybody's like that, right? Some people are like words of affirmation and like stroking the ego, and that might work for them. That won't work for me, right? And you'll have to really be curious about your people without the agenda. It's like, how do I empower them best? Because when you do that, everything else falls into place. I promise. The calling out, the turnover, the culture shift that you need, the communication, the conflict resolution, the productivity, the profitability, the positivity. When you care on how do I serve best and how do I empower them best and what's in it for them, all this other stuff falls into place.
And you're only able to do that if you have compassion.
Bingo. Because I'm telling you, there are people that frustrate me. My own son frustrates me sometimes. And I have a lot to learn from him, right? Sometimes the people that frustrate us the most are here to teach us the most. And that could be your own
That's
team.
annoying.
It is annoying. Trust me. I know I was gifted the 2 kids I have because they're my greatest teachers. And they equally, I'm like, I don't even know how you came from me sometimes. And that's beautiful. Actually, this is what happens. Like, the people that challenge you are here to show you the parts of you that probably got pushed down with the compassion for yourself. Quite honestly, the empathetic, sensitive being that my son is absolutely got lost very early on for me. And that free-spirited, enthusiastic visionary that is my daughter, like I couldn't be playful and innocent. Life was at stake, right? And so being gifted, and these 2 people triggered me more than anyone in my early days of motherhood.
Wow.
More than anyone. And now they're like these mirrors of what actually is inside of me that I have had to come back home to. So the people in your team that maybe activate you the most are here to show you the most. The more you can meet yourself and them with compassion, the more that we can all leverage each other in this thing called life. All of us.
Wow.
Right? It's amazing.
I think what's most amazing, though, is your ability to like put words to it. Ashley, my wife, reminds me of this as well.
Mm-hmm.
She has the ability to use words to describe experiences and feeling. And the words are hard to create sometimes. It's what musicians and songwriters do really well too. Thank you for sharing all these things. Is there anything else that you want people to know?
It's not a shticky little tool. And it's funny because when you were talking about when you heard about the Enneagram is when it became mainstream. So this was about 2017.
Yeah, it was.
And I had already been mastering this tool for 5 years, and I told no one that I was using this tool. In every conversation, I built sales organizations full of women, and everybody was like, how are you doing this? How are you doing this? And I told no one about it. And it was when it became mainstream, I didn't jump on it because it was trendy. I jumped on it because I saw it being used so ineffectively and too cutesy for the beautiful tool that it is. And I will say this, like any tool, when you become masterful with it, like I said, a surgeon, works with precision with a scalpel, but that scalpel can also be a weapon, right? Any tool, a chainsaw, very powerful tool. And we've seen horror movies made with it, right?
I have not. I don't like those.
Yeah, I love those.
You love true crime and horror.
I love it all. Even the Bible is a tool, and we can see that being weaponized. So please, for the love of everything beautiful, if you choose to use this tool, please do it for the greatest good and compassion for yourself and other people. Please don't use it to weaponize or to manipulate and I know that's why I wasn't introduced to anything like this sooner, because I absolutely would have done that, because I wasn't as evolved. I wasn't as self-aware and intelligent emotionally, and I still had some things to address. I needed to come back home to who I am. So, just like any tool, please use it masterfully and skillfully. And if you choose to go down this road, like, take time with it. Don't try to rush it. Please don't go around typing people and telling them what they think, because it's like you're giving them the wrong navigation system and sending them in the wrong direction.
If people take a test and it's 65 to 70% inaccurate, typing other people without the experience is probably like 95 to 99% inaccurate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And so my assessment's over 95% accurate, and time with me, like, we're going to nail it 100%.
Yeah.
And you'll have a guide to kind of, like, it's one thing to see like your navigation system and your personal atlas to bring you back home to you. But like, I know I had 40 years of muscle memory of going the wrong way a lot of the time. And so sometimes just having somebody guide us through the map a little bit can really fast track how masterful we become in understanding ourselves and coming back home.
Yeah. And how can people get a hold of you? Is Instagram the best way, or do your website? Or
Instagram is great. Tracy _O'Malley.
TRACY.
Yep.
_OMALLEY.
Yep. And my website is probably better if you have questions. It doesn't get lost in the DMs and things like that.
And what's the website?
TracyO'Malley.com.
Cool.
Yeah, you can find everything that I do there. If you do have a team, and want me to come in, it's
tell us about what you do.
That's my favorite thing to do. And I do it for all teams. I do it for groups, families. I'm doing a girls' weekend.
For families?
Oh, I'm obsessed. Because it started in my family, I will always do family work as well. I'm doing a girls' weekend in Yellowstone with a group of 8 best friends. That's going to be amazing.
That's fun.
I know. It's my dream job. Sarah Blakely, I'm coming for you too and your girlfriends. That's my big whisper goal. But I customize, and tailor it to what you need.
Mm-hmm.
I find out what's really going on before we meet up. I kind of get some intel, what your goal is with your team. We obviously share what each other are, but then I take you through the process of understanding each of us and then kind of putting things on the table that need to be put on with somebody who can facilitate conflict very easily and effectively. So if that's something you want to bring into your business, just reach out on my website. I'll customize it to you and we'll go from there. It's legit. It's I love putting human puzzles together, and when we try to put pieces together that maybe aren't fitting, maybe we just have it turned, if you've ever done a puzzle and you get that one piece that you can't figure out where it goes and it's so frustrating, you put it over there. Sometimes that's the one piece, just angling it the right way makes the whole thing come together. And I think sometimes we have that one piece in our team, our organization, our clientele, our family, that it's we just try to keep throwing that puzzle piece away or pushing it to the side. And it's maybe we just need to shift it a little bit and it can make it all come together. So we can do that with your team as well.
And maybe that puzzle piece doesn't fit in the puzzle anymore.
Maybe not.
And you help with that too?
Maybe somebody put it in the wrong box. Absolutely. Oh, I've helped hire and
that would have been a toddler for sure.
Yeah, for
put
sure.
Put it in the wrong box.
Yeah, I've helped more teams transition people out. I've helped people transition out of relationships they shouldn't maybe keep continuing with, and it doesn't make anybody bad necessarily. We don't need to blow up our lives or our businesses to make changes, but we can do it more elegantly when we understand what we're working with and how to do it where it's a win-win for everyone.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing this information with us and helping us understand more about how we can work with ourselves and others better. Yeah. This is so valuable.
Isn't it great?
Yes, it is.
I know. I'm obsessed with it.
It is great, but it's you.
Thank you.
Isn't it great? Yes.
It's my interpretation of it.
It is great. You are great.
Thank you.
This has been so helpful. We'll probably have to do more episodes.
Ask for me back. You just give me a call.
If you want Tracy back, let me know and we'll have more. But thank you again for sharing.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you for listening. Take care of yourself, everybody.
Bye.